This is Coda Radio, episode 38 for February 25th, 2013. You're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning from the grid, Chris.
Good morning. How's it on the East Coast today?
It is actually relatively sunny and nice here.
Oh, that's nice. It's actually raining and crappy here.
It's about time that you took some of the brunt.
Yeah, let's be fair. You've definitely had the worst of it.
Yeah,
I admit to that. Well, it's good to talk to you, Mr. Dominic, and I believe we have quite the show today, don't we?
We do. We have an all-new show.
Some might even say a big show.
I would even say a Big Mac Attack show.
Oh, I'm looking forward to, see, that's a little pre-show reference there. I'm looking forward to the hoopla. There's some good stories in there. But I know that we got quite a bit of feedback this week. I saw the emails rolling in, so I want to cover that. So should we start there with the feedback?
Yes, I have distilled the feedback into three main points.
Three delicious bite-sized
points.
Chunks.
So the first is Oliver writes in to tell me he's moving away from Rails to something called Java Play, and would like to know if I have any thoughts on it. Oliver, it seems like you're a few episodes behind. I suggest you listen to the last two episodes. Moving right along.
Oh, really? That's it? No Java Play update from you? Like, it's going great. I'm really happy so far. Nothing like that, huh?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
All right. So I confused Dave for the Oracle JDK and OpenJDK. So, Chris, this is the problem I had last week. I was developing on the Oracle JDK, but deploying to the OpenJDK, and there were some issues. Dave took that to mean that there's something wrong with either JDK or one's inherently better. So that's not the case, Dave. The issue is that I was developing and running my tests against one and deploying to the other.
You don't really have a sense one way or the other if there's
I really don't think it matters.
Yeah.
For most uses, no. Certainly not for what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's just me being silly and kind of dumb.
Just basically, your main issue was you weren't just starting with OpenJDK from the very beginning.
Yeah, I started with Oracle JDK, and then when I went to spin up the server, I ended up using OpenJDK because it was easier just to apt-get it and keep it up to date like that. And given some of the Java issues, keeping Java up to date
that's a nice feature.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's actually usually the route I go to, just because it is a lot easier.
Yeah. So that's just, and you could just as easily install the OpenJDK on your local system and work like that and be fine. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so one of our biggest feedback stories this week was that I made a purchase.
This is a big upset. I gotta tell you. I think I had to take a day off from the internet when I heard about this.
There was some unhappiness.
Yeah.
Some good-natured ribbing on Google+.
Oh, yeah?
Some less good-natured emails.
So after all of the talk of the future of Android, the possibilities of Windows Phone platform, and the hope of BlackBerry 10, Mr. Dominic, you purchased
an iPhone 5.
What?
He's a jackass.
Hey, Obama, come on. Not just an iPhone 5.
Obama has judged.
Yeah.
A white iPhone 5. And now, tell me about this decision, because actually I think I detect a sense of guilt in your voice.
Not guilt. So all kidding aside, this wasn't because I wanted an iPhone. I was relatively happy with my Windows Phone. It was because over the last, I'd say, 2.5, 3 weeks, there's been a lot of weird bugs clients and other testers have been reporting specific to the iPhone 5. Most of them are in relation to that taller screen. So it just got to the point where, I was in a position where I couldn't know if I was addressing these issues because I couldn't test.
You always would just have questions and lingering doubt, right?
Right, because some stuff you can test in the simulator for the taller screen, but a few things you can't, like a custom camera or whatever.
Custom camera? Oh, like a custom camera app?
Not an app, but yeah, like anything that is not in the simulator. There's a whole list. So camera,
okay.
push notifications. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't test in the simulator.
Oh, interesting. That seems
Yeah,
limited.
it's not. It depends on what type of app it is, right? Like if you're dealing with a lot of media, yeah, the simulator is going to be
Mm-hmm.
very, very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So it just got to the point where everybody, the stakeholders and clients were all very good natured about it, but it got to be to me just a little ridiculous and a little, almost embarrassing, right? Because I submit a fix that I don't know if it actually works. So I had an upgrade on my contract and I just did it. I got me a white iPhone 5.
And how's it been? Now, what was
Oh,
the last device you ran iOS on? Like, is this the fastest iOS device you've owned?
The last one was a 4S.
Okay, so does it feel like a big upgrade from that?
In terms of speed, not really. So the other thing is, for my phones, I basically use them as really glorified Spotify players and Downcast clients, podcast
Podcast,
clients. Yeah.
yeah.
I am liking the taller screen, and I'm liking that I can test these issues that I couldn't previously test.
Sure,
I mean, as a device, it's a nice device, right?
sure.
There's not much to say about it. It's it's an iPhone. You know what you're getting. It's nice. There's some annoying things that I wish it would bring over from Windows Phone and from Android. Like from Android, intents or widgets would be great. From Windows Phone, live tiles would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But it did coming off of the HTC X. Using the iPhone felt
Old?
very, I would say a little old, but also more importantly, siloed.
Oh, sure, sure.
Everything feels like it's in its place, and never shall it wane me, right? Like you're not gonna. So it was weird. And I'm using Windows Phone as the analogy because that was the device I ended up
Using, right, before
yeah.
you switched.
Windows Phone is the bad Windows Phone apps are really, really bad.
Yeah.
But the good ones are kind of awesome. Like they interop with each other, and it's really, really good.
So I don't, so this is a problem I struggle with, and I don't have quite the same need to have the latest gear that you do because I'm not testing per se. But as client support, I have clients that have BlackBerries, Android phones, and iOS devices, obviously. And I've always been sort of compelled by that to have at least some modern version of all of those, so that way, like, I know how to set up Exchange Active Sync on an Android device, because if I'm charging somebody a lot of money and I'm standing in front of them and they hand me their smartphone and say set up email and I have to bumble around like I've never used the device before, that doesn't look like I'm worth my money. But if I can confidently pop right through the menus, then I look like I'm worth my money. So I've always kind of kept a device for similar purposes, so that way I can learn and teach myself and stay current in that platform. Now, the problem is back in the days when that really meant Windows, Linux, and Mac, I could almost do that on one computer, if not two computers, with the case of the Mac.
Right.
Now these devices, the cheapest thing about them is the initial purchase, but then they come with these data plans, especially if you're in the US, they're chained to these plans. For me, it sort of becomes inhibiting to move. Like, I feel like I've sort of cashed out and I bought all the devices I can buy for a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's the position I felt like I was in. But ultimately, it's just a pure, it is the cost of the device. Even if I bought it off of contract, it was a necessary expense, right? Especially if you're developing a mobile device, you need to have the devices.
This is where I'm really envious of our viewers and listeners outside the U.S., because they don't have this like $1,200 contract that they drag along with any smartphone that they buy.
Well, what's going to be worse is if they come out with an iPhone 6 or a 5S that's in some significant way different, I'm going to need to buy that, and I'm going to have to buy it off of contract.
But this isn't really that much different in the Android space. In fact, isn't it almost worse?
For most Android projects, I've had to buy a device, yes.
So in my experience, the client always says, we kind of want to target this. We really want to make sure it works on like these couple of things. And it's usually like iPhone, iPad, and, Gingerbread or better Android, or specifically the Galaxy S3, or it, like for one client, because they were doing drawings, specifically the Note. And
Yeah.
so then you buy that device for that project.
And then that has been the situation for me in Android, and that's part of the reason I tend to take more iOS projects than Android because I always have to pre-qualify the cost if I need to buy a specific device.
Mm.
Because let's say a Note, I'm unlikely to use the Note for any other project. Where a Galaxy Nexus is, versatile and
Well, what
one of
really
my
sucks is when the
yeah.
client wants to test it on older hardware. So like I've ended up picking up gadgets that I don't want at all. Like there's no compelling reason to buy that gadget anymore, but they want to make sure it runs on that. So then I end up with like these crappy devices too. And in some cases, like in those cases, they just buy them. But every now and then, like I end up with it. It's this weird like new problem we have. I think with
Yeah.
specifically mobile that's much worse.
It's even worse with tablets than phones, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because you can just give someone a phone, like a relative a phone for their Christmas or something. A tablet, I don't know. It's definitely a problem, and it's
Yeah, I
definitely
see
this is
that. I see that
yeah
because
this
see, you can always use an old phone as a phone. Like if you had an
right
iPhone 1 right now, you could still call somebody on it, which is like the core purpose of a phone. But a tablet,
yeah
once it starts getting too slow to run modern apps, it's essential, and the battery at that point is usually fading too. It becomes a paperweight.
yeah, and that I mean I have a Motorola Zoom that's effectively a paperweight,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
I have a
it's
Galaxy Tab, the original Galaxy Tab 7-inch that runs Android 2.1.
yeah. I mean this problem isn't going to go away if you're a mobile developer developing towards these devices. You need to bake in. If somebody calls you and says they have this weird HTC Android device that's super skinned, you probably want to buy that device just in case there's some weird interaction on that specific device.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't get the project to a rate where you can absorb the cost of the device, that's into an estimating and billing question where is it worth it? Right? If you're just going to cover the cost of a device and a little bit more, is it worth it? Or would you be better off going elsewhere? And that's more and more going to be a problem. So yeah, I mean that was a depressing note.
Well, I think it's an unspoken cost that we're all as enthusiasts and geeks probably fighting and struggling with a little more than we'd like. We probably even feel a little
Right.
guilty about it. I think there's some guilt there because these are expensive gadgets and you struggle with that. It's like I do need it for my work. If I want to deliver the best results possible, I do need to do this. But at the same time, it's excessive. I mean, sitting here right in front of me, I have a Samsung
Yep.
Galaxy. I have a Nexus 7.
Yeah.
I have an
Yeah.
iPad. I have, it's just I have an Evo. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I have two iPhones, a Galaxy Nexus, an Xperia Play, and a Nexus 7, all within like 2 feet of each other. Yeah. I mean, one thing is the Nexus devices and the iPhones are actually pretty versatile, right? Because they're
Mhm.
like the baseline. Uh, it's when you get into like the weird PlayStation phones that you get into some kind of odd situation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually the Nexus line
Yeah.
has been super super beneficial for
Yeah.
Android.
Honestly, to give Android some credit, tends to be more of a problem, for me at least, when a company wants an internal app for like a sales team or one case it was a marketing team, and they've bought some Chinese cheap tablet,
Uh-huh.
like no name, because even getting the tablet is difficult, and it's there's a lot of weird cases, but ultimately this will all stabilize, and there'll be a few processors, and that's it. Like this is a problem that's going to fix itself eventually.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so
Which
funny
actually,
because we're so super early in the whole market.
yeah, which leads into one of our Hoopla stories. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going to go out of order.
Let's do it.
Speaking of standardizing on one type of processor,
Uh-huh.
let's talk x86, Chris.
Boy,
Uh,
dude, if you would have asked me
Yep.
before Apple switched to Intel and all that kind of stuff, everybody was still talking about RISC, and Sony was coming out with the Cell processor, and the Xbox 360 came out, and it was using PowerPC, and it really looked like we had and the Pentium 4 was the chip of the day, and the Pentium 4 was a
Dude, I
disaster.
remember when I couldn't convince my grandfather to get me an Intel chip.
Yeah.
because he said they're overpriced.
Right. Yeah. AMD
He's
was
like, I'm not paying for that. This is, I think he said AMD is like he didn't know anything about computers, but he's like, that's like elitist. AMD, that's the people chip. I'm like, okay.
it's so but
Yeah.
here we are. Um Fast forward 13 years or so, I don't know, 8 years, whatever it's been, and x86 is stronger than it's ever been, and it looks like the new gaming platforms, the new gaming consoles, the next gen gaming consoles will be x86 too.
Even Sony. So Sony, if you don't know, just announced the PS4. It's essentially a souped up computer. And it literally is a souped up PC. It's an x86 PC.
Mhm.
That is the smartest thing they could have done.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be huge for indie game adoption because it totally lowers that barrier. And what was the PlayStation 3 notorious for? Even gamers knew this.
It's hellish cell architecture. Yeah.
Made it very hard to develop for. That cell architecture and the way developers had to specifically write their games to take advantage of those different cores, it made it a
Well,
major hurdle.
and the reality is most developers didn't, and you got crappy shit like Skyrim, right? Like where it was good on the
Yeah.
360 and was just broken on the PS3. Uh, so we're not going to go too much into everything they announced because that's kind of a different area than ours. But one thing of note is that this opens the door for Sony to become the premier indie game platform. I mean, they had Jonathan Blow on stage, and you might not like him.
From Braid.
Yeah, he might be a touch pretentious. But
Well, he seems like maybe he has a bit of a
did you know?
social. Hmm.
Did you watch the presentation? He actually insulted them as soon as he got on stage.
Yes, I did, and I thought,
Yeah,
that's just the price you pay for having his personality type up there.
yeah. I was watching. I'm like, whoa, that's not very nice.
Yeah.
Like, just yeah.
Well, what I think is maybe potentially, I would like to know the backstory is Braid was very, very much an Xbox 360 arcade launch title, and it honestly,
Oh, the backstory for the witness. It's very simple.
and I think they put, I think Braid put downloadable
Yeah.
arcade titles on the map in a big way for the Xbox 360. And then to
I
see
mean,
him jump ship over to Sony and be a
well,
launch title, that's.
Castle Crashers was out before Braid. Like there were things before
Oh,
Braid.
no, I
But
know,
Braid,
I know. I
yeah.
didn't mean to attribute all of the success to Braid, but I think it played an important role.
So it's pretty widely rumored that the reason it's on the PS4 is that Microsoft wasn't very compliant. He had been in communications, and this is all rumor, but this is very accepted. If you Google around, you'll find, suppose, he's talked about it. Basically, he made a request and they didn't reply fast enough. Which, honestly, I said that a little mean. I agree with him. I hate when large companies don't like to reply to smaller companies' requests, or they think, we'll get to you next week.
Yeah, especially when you are
Yeah.
a past performer.
Well, especially if they come back and say things like, well, we're a public company, so we have procedures. So, and if you read the thing, it sounded like they were making him go through a lot of hoops.
For the witness, like he was trying to write the witness for the Xbox.
It was intended to be cross-platform,
Ah,
and they were not being cooperative. They were treating. I mean, there's two sides to every story.
yes,
Having followed him relatively closely, I have a feeling he expected a little bit of special treatment.
yes.
And when he had to go through the hoops that everybody else had to go through, I don't think he liked it. And so there's two sides to every story, but the point is, if Sony's willing to not be like that,
You
if
could
Sony's willing
also, but you could
yeah.
also argue that maybe Microsoft should learn how to work with star performers to encourage more of those, and that does.
You shouldn't. That's a bad argument.
All right, all right. I don't know. I
Because
mean,
what that leads into is a very incestuous market
right.
where you keep having the same type. So Braid was good because there wasn't a lot of things like Braid out. But if the only type of developers that get any playtime, any airtime are Jonathan Blow and his ilk,
The squeaky wheels.
yeah, and he has a lot of very strong positions on what games can and cannot do or should and should not do, and he's successful in part because there's very few people like him that have attained any real success, other than being the guy in the corner yelling, right? I mean, we've seen them all, the guys who just yell about Call of Duty every year.
Right.
It's essentially what he is. He's a very successful one of those. So I don't think special treatment's the answer. I mean, I get annoyed when And there's obvious favoritism on the Apple App Store. A former Apple developer gets featured with no sales. I mean,
But the
we
result is you lose his new game.
you lose prima donnas.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a feeling,
But don't you
and
think?
I
But
don't.
video games at this level are going kind of Hollywood. They're kind of going Hollywood. I mean, I'm not trying to defend it so much, but there are divas now, and
There's
they do
certainly
get
a
to.
cult of personality around a number of people in that scene.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Is that just kind of the new world order of high end market video games? And does Microsoft need to play ball like that? Or I mean, so you're talking principles, and Sony's maybe obviously Sony's doing the bend over backwards that he wants, and so they're getting his title.
I honestly think I think Braid is a great game, but I think games of that ilk are best served when they're few and far between.
Yeah, definitely.
So Fez and Braid, and because I think that's also who you're kind of thinking about,
Yes.
or at least who jumps to mind.
Yep, yep.
They did well and they deserve their success because they were different. But I don't want a Phil Fish Jr., right? I don't want 20 Jonathan Blow wannabes. You know, are you still a rebel or are you still, different if there's 20,000 people trying to make your game?
Well, and not to get all touchy-feely here, and that could be way off base, but does
Right.
maybe some of that unique art and inspiration come from the constraints and struggling that creative artist was under when they made that game? And once you sort of just blow the door open and roll out the red carpet, it's not the same environment anymore. It's not the same person making that same product.
Maybe, but I mean, your argument leads to, we should keep them struggling. Right?
Well,
I,
yeah.
I don't think that's fair, but I don't think that he should be able to flash his driver's license and say, "I'm Jonathan Blow.
Right. Right.
I am not going to be subject to your review process." I don't think that's fair. I think if Dylan decided to make a game, and let's say he was an adult and he could legally, I think him and Jonathan Blow should be treated the same way. Dylan isn't your son, is a no name, right?
And I think Jonathan Blow looks at it as I'm more than just Joe Blow off the street. I'm Jonathan Blow, and I've earned you money, and we've worked together before, and now I want a different level of relationship.
And to be fair, I mean, I from experience know his complaints are actually legitimate.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not in
Microsoft's
this
huge.
specific case, and this is something that even happens with all the large platform vendors. They have a lot of bureaucracy, and sometimes if they need a manager's approval, they just forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like your email might sit in someone's bin until you call them again. So,
But back to the x86 PlayStation
Yeah.
3 or 4, I'm sorry. One thing that wasn't announced during this kind of keynote that was a little weird, didn't get dates, didn't get prices, didn't even see the box. But otherwise, actually kind of interesting keynote on Sony's part. One of the more better, I watched the whole thing. I was very entertained by it.
it was a great presentation.
Yeah, but I was surprised I didn't see any Steam or Valve mentions. Because there's that integration now with the PlayStation 3, and it would seem like going to x86 it would be an opportunity to one up that, and they weren't even mentioned. They weren't even their icon was never on screen. Nothing.
I mean, I don't think that's realistic, right? I mean, Steam. I think Valve is making devices that are going to compete.
Is
with
this the
these
Steam
devices.
box Fallout?
I think this is Valve's burned a few bridges.
Wow.
Yeah.
It just would be so awesome to buy a game on my desktop and be able to play it on my PlayStation 4.
No, never. Nope.
I wonder
Not
if
unless
the 360 is going to be a PC like this too.
So you heard about the kid who leaked all the specs and got raided by the feds, right? He got a Durango dev kit.
I heard about a leak. I didn't hear about the feds part.
They got him.
No
They
kidding.
got him.
So
Which is stupid, because to me, having him raided by the feds only validates everything he said.
yeah,
Yeah. So now we know for a fact that it is, in fact, very, very similar to the PS4.
so this guy named Super Day, that's what he went by?
Yeah, I think it's Super Day.
Oh, and so they had the oh my gosh, they had the Xbox in like a PC, like they had the
Well, that's just what dev kits are. Yeah.
I know, but I just love that because it reminds you at the end of the day that these really are just computers. Because remember, the Xbox 360 was the Mac Pro. That was their dev kit for the.
Well, that was a
360.
Power PC.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is this one is not.
No.
According to this guy, this is x86. slightly more RAM than the PS4, I believe, and a slightly different graphics
Right.
processor.
Not too surprising.
Other than that, these two platforms are going to be very similar. So from a developer perspective, I mean, AAA developers have more money than God. They throw millions at a game. They don't need, whatever. They can take care of themselves. But for indies, that means, I mean, there's of course going to be difficulty, but with less difficulty than last gen, you can hit, unless they put up some weird restrictions that you have to use their development toolchain. But barring that, you can hit PC, Mac, PS4, and Xbox with relative same amount of effort added per platform, which I think is huge. And I think that's the real story here.
Yeah. It's not only huge for the big guys, but it's huge for the little guys too. I mean, you mentioned the AAA guys.
It's almost more important for the little guys because the big guys can just write another check. I mean, Activision.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how hard the PS5 or PS4 would have been to develop for. Activision would just write another $1 million check and deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so. And this indie game move is very different for Sony. Now they've been open to it on the PlayStation Vita. You can actually sign up for that, and they have a very iOS App Store model. But on the console, that's if they can pull that away from Microsoft, I really do think Microsoft undervalues what XBLA is for them.
I would say that Sony does seem like they'd be better positioned, like with all other interests considered, to embrace the indie gamer more.
Yeah, and what's interesting is until the end of this generation, they didn't. They snubbed indie gamers. Was it Sony or Nintendo who had that nasty comment about garage developers?
Oh, I don't remember.
I think that might have been Nintendo.
I think it might have been. Yeah, because he was implying iOS developers, yeah.
Yeah, so it's... And, recent moves on XBLA, killing XNA, it does seem like Microsoft's going in the opposite direction, in the more we're your living room hub.
Yeah, I think they just see that, Xbox Live membership revenue stream, and they want to make that, they want to build on that, I bet. Whereas Sony kind of has a different approach. They're still more traditional make profit off titles and things like that.
By the way, the whole digital hub idea, that was Apple's. Yeah.
Yeah, back when they introduced the iPod, right?
Back when they introduced the iMac.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. In fact, I remember because I remember they had a poster where there was a Rio player in the circle of digital love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it didn't work before very well. I mean, it worked. It limped along because of the iPod, but they did eventually have to get away from that. I'm not sure that I really hope those rumors aren't true.
A world powered by USB. Yeah, here's for you video viewers. I have a very blurry picture of. I love it. He's got a huge DVD player. He's got a Palm Top, a digital camera, a CD player, and a Rio MP3 player. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah, that Rio MP3 player did not last too long.
No. Interesting though that they featured that up there.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, we can belabor this point. But if Sony's willing to take these steps, I would encourage, because we do get a lot of emails from them, Chris, that the indie devs in the audience actually just give Sony another look. I know they've been jerky in the past and kind of arrogant.
Well, I'll tell you, we know the Steam box otherwise will end up being the de facto indie dev platform, or the Ouya,
I would say no matter what
Ouya.
PC, Windows PC / Steam box should be your first platform.
Interestingly enough, I think we'll have the Steam box and the Ouya in our hands. Oh, well, the Ouya in June, right? Hopefully.
June or is it May?
I don't know, but around then. And with the Steam box, who knows? Maybe we'll start seeing build your own images released, shortly, and then hardware by holidays. The Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 4 are going to be holiday season. And so the Ouya is going to have a pretty good head start for all of this. And they've got some very interesting pricing in place. They've got, a lot of momentum. So they, in terms of positioning, are a little better off. We're talking indie devs.
If they get the market share, yes.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll hear what their sales numbers are.
Well, it's like anything else. If they're good, we'll hear it. If they're bad, we'll hear, we built X.
There's one more hardware release we could talk about before we get kind of into the nitty-gritty hoopla. You want to talk about
the Chrome Pixel?
Yeah, should we just kind of talk about that for a little bit while we're still on the hardware?
Yeah, it's just a bad idea.
Okay. See, I thought you were gonna come on here, and I thought you and I were gonna get in a girl fight over the Pixel because I was gonna be again it, and you were gonna be for
Stupid
it.
idea. And it makes me worry about Android a lot.
Well, so The Verge seems to kind of like it. They gave it like a 7 point something.
I like it because it looks like a MacBook. So the real see when I read these PC reviews, the real question they should ask if you had $1,500 right now, would you buy this or a MacBook Pro or a System 76 or whatever your normal preference would be, Windows, Linux, whatever. And I challenge the person to tell me they'd buy me the Chrome Pixel, right? Because this is $1,500.
Yeah.
If I had $1,500 and I needed a laptop, I would be loath to buy this.
Well,
And
it's $1,300 if you don't want
but
LTE connectivity.
all right, fair enough, $1,300, right? Chrome OS made sense to me for Joe user when it was $400.
Yeah. You gotta have connectivity though. It's a Chromebook,
Yeah,
so you almost have to get the LTE, which then
but
also I don't know.
what the real story is
I
here.
guess you could tether.
Well, there's two stories, right? People haven't really picked up. The one they kind of have, right? That Google may be opening stores, which is interesting. The other is the history of Chrome OS versus the history of Android.
Yeah.
Android was a purchase. Android was not invented at Google. Chrome is Google's baby. Now, this is maybe conspiracy theory. Google's all about the web. Don't you see a future where Android is, I don't know, deprecated, and Chrome OS becomes the default OS for all Google products?
Like we're in a world where like standards like WebRTC are finally ingrained, and we have really rich HTML5
Right.
applications.
Because when I think about Google's business from a purely business perspective, Android's a weird thing for them to have. I mean, yeah, they serve ads on it, and yeah, they do kinds of shady data collection, if you allow them to, depending on the carrier. By the way, by default, Verizon does it, so you have to call them and tell them not to. And I got a letter telling me that they just sent out letters. So if you have Verizon, you might want to do that because they sell it. Chrome OS kind of fits into their original mission statement a lot better than Android, making the web better,
Yeah.
making everything web-based,
Yeah, I agree with that.
which is a honorable thing to do.
And they've accomplished a lot, really.
Right, and that's kind of my concern as someone who has something of a vested interest in Android. At what point does it not make sense to support both these platforms?
I don't know if that. So you look at the Amazon approach where they sell an Amazon Kindle. They also still sell paper books, and they also make a very good Kindle app for Android and iOS that are theoretically competitors with the Amazon Kindle.
But Amazon does not have to put all the R&D and development costs, which is very, very high, into Android or iOS.
Right, but I think the end goals are still the same. Google wants you to just use more Google services, and Amazon just wants you to buy more books.
Maybe. I mean, that's probably
What I don't understand is
their
why
term.
they didn't go with Android on the Chromebook.
Right. I don't understand why Chrome OS exists,
Yeah,
basically.
I never have.
And my concern is that it's not that Chrome OS needs a reason to exist, it's that Android was a stopgap to stop Apple, to slow down Apple and potentially Microsoft. Because remember, at the time, there was a lot of concern about what Microsoft and RIM would do.
So you're thinking they said, all right, we've got to get a mobile platform out there. We'll buy up this Android here,
We'll just straight up buy this Android thing.
and we'll keep working on it. And then in the background, we'll just keep building up this Chrome platform until the applications are ready, until it meets everyone's standards, and then we'll just one day we'll have a big keynote and swap them out.
I don't think it'll be a big keynote. I think it'll be slowly but surely. And that's my crazy idea.
I mean, I see your logic here. That
Yeah.
and the other thing that I've kind of read is that the Android team operates very sort of like in their own little carved out area of Google.
Yeah,
They're sort
that's
of
what
their
I've
own
been hearing.
renegade team.
Yeah, they're as well. I mean, it's Google, but as much as you could be a different company inside of Google, supposedly they are.
Chrome in general feels like a Google-wide effort. Like everybody believes in that.
Yeah.
Android feels like a very specific niche inside Google.
And that's, I mean, I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. I think this is like a 5-10 year thing.
Well, then maybe it's not so bad.
Maybe it's not. My dog thinks it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
She's a big Android fan.
She's going to go chase down Sergey right now.
She's going to go, although you better not, because he's got those Google glasses. He'll just give the whole thing to the court. It's just bad. He'll put you right down.
I wonder, it's an interesting theory, and it would, although, they added, like, for example, to this Pixel, they put, that's a touchscreen on this thing. But Chrome OS is really not a touch OS.
It's certainly a very pretty device, and I really like the case. I know some people were hating on it, but I really do. I do like the case and the clean lines. I would not pay that much for Chrome OS.
As a Linux user, I actually almost would prefer what you're talking about, because Chrome OS would allow for native apps and web apps. And
Chrome OS?
I mean,
you mean
could.
Android?
No, I'm saying what you're talking about as a Linux user, I would almost prefer that Chrome OS became the dominant platform in some ways, if it was fully usable on a mobile phone. And Chrome OS almost makes more sense on a phone because Chrome OS requires constant connectivity.
And that's kind of what my thought is. That it almost makes more sense on a mobile device than on a laptop in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and Android almost makes more sense offline because you can have apps, they can have local data. They almost have reverse roles in a way.
You know what Android feels like to me? It feels like the old OS 2. It can run like your vending machine. It can run your. No, I'm not.
I feel like Android's
kidding.
actually with 4.1 and 4.2. I'm actually much more impressed than I was even, with 4.0. I think.
Oh, I like the new interface. I just got, I think, 4.2.1 or 4.2.2 on my 7.
Yeah, I love getting current updates on the Nexus devices.
Every time I look in PC Magazine, there's like another weird utility appliance that runs Android, and it seems like there are a lot of really innovative companies taking it and being like, we can just customize this and it'll be our special operating system for this device.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great future, not for devs, but just for the system as a whole. I mean, why not?
Before we just totally switch off the Chromebooks, I know we have some other topics we want to get to. Just quickly, I think the Chromebook does make a lot of sense in schools, where Wi-Fi can be plentiful. There's a lot more schools that are using web-based training tools and document editors and things like that. So, they are seeing a lot of success in
but not at this price point. They were successful at $400.
Maybe
that's my thing.
Maybe you standardize on Chromebooks and you buy the school administrators this book because you always got to get them the nice computers.
Sure.
I don't know.
The superintendent walks around with his shiny Chromebook.
It's almost like we got that rumor a couple of weeks ago about the Pixel, and it was like, oh, just kidding, that was just a rumor. And they were testing the waters to see if people were like, what, that's crazy, or we got to have this. And all of the fanboys in chorus went, we got to have this. So Google said, all right, we'll bring it to market. And they shipped it. I'm not saying it's Q level F up here, because if I had all the money in the world to blow, I'd probably pick one of these up just to try it out. And then I would load Mint or Ubuntu on there.
See, I would not. I'd rather, if I was going to load Ubuntu on something, I would just pick up a System 76 or a Sputnik.
Yeah, you get an Ultrabook or you get one of the System 70. I know, I totally agree.
But we do have bigger fish to fry.
All right, let's move on, sir.
I have to punch a dead horse in the face.
Ouch. Careful,
that horse is named Yahoo.com.
Oh, man.
So you know how tech companies are famous for moving forward in business process styles and really just hitting the bleeding edge of getting the most productivity out of their workers.
I think you're bumping. I think you're bumping your mic over there a lot. You must be getting worked up.
I probably am.
You're getting worked up, aren't you? You're getting all fired up.
I'm a little fired up. And while keeping employee happiness at the highest levels in any industry,
right, helping people be creative, helping people come up with brilliant new ideas. That's supposed to be what tech companies are about.
Yahoo has decided to just really hit that reset button. Just roll that right back. Just hit the get reset hard.
Now, Google's kind of a big come to the Googleplex, we'll take care of you, we'll feed you, we'll cut your hair, we'll wash your clothes kind of company.
Yeah, but Google's like, come to the Google Plus and we'll be your mommy.
Right, I wonder if that's where she gets this kind of philosophy from, though.
Well, I think it is, and she refers to Marissa Mayer, who is one of my personal heroes. She's implementing some of that Google stuff, but she doesn't have it all yet. And this move is a bit premature, and if you don't know, the move we're talking about is they're banning remote work effective, what is it, like a month from now or something?
It's like July or June, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very different to have that at Google where, you can call them up and say, "Hey, can you take my suit to the dry cleaners or do my laundry or I'd like to play Xbox."
Yahoo, I
Well,
guess, has a lot of people who work remotely too, hundreds at
because they're
least.
very just yeah, they do. So it's gonna, a lot of people take jobs with remote work because they're remote work
Oh yeah.
jobs.
Oh, I have. Oh yeah.
And
Spe-
to then change that, I wouldn't be surprised if they see a lot of turnover in the next 6 months.
It's a big change of the, they're changing the deal, and what they're going to
Yeah,
have, what happens is the people who can walk will walk, and those are your A players, and the people who can't walk will begrudgingly pack up and they'll drive 2 hours into the office, hopefully listening to Coda Radio, and they'll
right.
they'll be, upset
But
about it.
what's going to happen? Frustrated coders are not efficient
Well,
coders.
and what you do is you mainly retain the B players. And I'm not trying to be insulting, and that is not always the
Right.
case, but a lot of times it is the
Yep.
case.
And my argument would be even the B players are now going to be D players because they're upset, they're resentful, and now that they have to travel, they're going to be watching that clock.
Well, you never know what somebody's situation is at home. Maybe they have a couple of kids, and or
Yeah.
maybe they do 6 podcasts a week. You never know what they're trying to get done.
Oh,
So it's
they're going to lose people. It's this is a reality.
yeah,
And you know, David, the Rails guy, David, I forgot his name. Damn. But from the Rails guy from Basecamp had a great note that this is the most simplistic and stupid form of management possible,
yeah.
where we're going to ensure people are doing their job by forcing them to sit in a chair for 9 to 5.
He says what this reveals more than anything is that Yahoo's management style doesn't have a clue as to who's actually productive and who's not. In their
Yep.
blindness, they're reaching for the lowest form of control a manager can assert, ensuring butts in seats for 8 hours between 9 to 5.
That is going to cause a lot of friction if they're.
Did you read the memo?
Yeah, they phrased it very kindly.
Yeah, they did. The part that
Yeah.
really got under my skin though was when it came time to like eat, and they were so anal about it. They even meant like just taking a little time off to take care of things. Like here's an example. This is a direct quote from the memo they sent out to the staff. Please use your best judgment in the spirit of collaboration. When management has to, this is what they're saying, when you need to go maybe stay home for the cable guy for a couple hours, please use your best judgment in the spirit of collaboration. And what David's point was is this is what management, when management has to lay it on so thick that they don't trust you with an
Yep.
afternoon at home waiting for the cable guy without a stern, please think of the company, then you know that something is horribly broken.
Something's not right, and I think they need to be reminded of most of these big tech startups started up with just a few guys alone doing their own thing, not in some kind of bureaucracy with middle management and time cards, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, I used to work in an environment where they set up the desk. It was an open seating. They set up the desk so that the manager's monitor was not visible to anybody else, but he could see everyone else's monitor. That place had a turnover rate that was counted in months, not years.
but you can't completely discount the value of working together with somebody. Being able to look over the cubicle and say, "Hey, what was it we decided to do for X?" Oh yeah, thanks, and then that kind of stuff.
There's definitely value. The problem is that they're changing the deal.
Yeah,
And
and really, honestly, Skype video calls, Google Hangouts, a lot of
exactly.
that stuff.
Well, I doubt Google Hangouts and Skype video calls are in vogue. Well, maybe Skype.
Yahoo Messenger maybe does group. I don't know,
Yeah.
but you know what
I,
I'm saying. Like, technology also can alleviate some of that.
I guess my thing is, they took the nuclear option here. They could have said do less work from home or be online, be on Google Chat or be on Yahoo Chat constantly.
Or we're gonna ask that everybody who works remotely at least comes in twice a week into the office.
Right.
Because
I mean,
they
even,
now have to provide desks for these people and working spots for these people.
well, think about it this way too. There's probably people who were willing to negotiate a lower salary because they didn't have to commute into, say, New York City, which is very expensive.
We're asking all employees with work from home arrangements to work in the Yahoo offices. If this impacts you, your management has already been in touch with the next steps. That's a little
Exactly.
ominous.
So are they giving you a raise to make up for the commuting costs? Because you may have negotiated a lower salary thinking you didn't have to pay that few thousand a year in commuting.
I would just think with the way gas prices are and the way the economy is and the way roads are, it just makes so much sense to let employees work from home. And I don't understand why we have to drive our employees so hard.
But Yahoo had a chance to be, even more forward thinking than Google in this, and they had a chance to really lead the way. And they honestly, this does feel very juvenile to me. This feels like middle management needs to be able to, look at your screen every once in a while to make sure you're not playing Candyland or whatever the hell.
Yeah, it's definitely the symptom of managing by counting butts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And no, I can't name any tech companies that are successful that do that. So
no, and in fact, like you mentioned, David, who's the creator of Ruby on Rails and a partner at 37 Signals, 37 Signals, aren't they entirely remote? And they're fairly successful. There's a lot of companies like them, actually.
GitHub is almost 100% remote, yeah.
And, if as Jupiter Broadcasting continues to grow, I might have, like, an official office building that's a studio. But, I would never, if I had employees, expect them to have to come in.
And also, if you're requiring people to be in the office, you're limiting your talent pool.
Right.
And also, you're limiting the ability to hire people from regions that are perhaps less expensive. So someone in California is going to cost a bit more.
Oh, and they're going to want to hire somebody who won't move, and they're going to really want this. They were going to really want this talent, and so they'll let them work remotely, and then they'll let somebody else work remotely, and then all of the people that had to come in start getting word that a couple of select few get to work remotely.
It's going to create so. Maybe the next step is massive layoffs, and they just fire. Maybe this is a way for them to see who's not productive, and they're just going to fire those people.
Well, I mean, you don't have to bring people in to find out if they're productive. You just have to have the systems in place to measure that.
Right. I've always been a big fan of, hours spent typing does not equal productivity.
I've had a few jobs, where they wanted me in. They wanted me in at 7:30. They wanted me out of there at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And there was times where they just didn't need me all that. And so I would have to pretend like I was busy. It's one of the most stressful things is pretending, and especially when your boss sits within view of your cubicle, it's just like this anxiety that you build up over time, just trying to look busy to justify your position. Yeah.
It's really
agonizing.
Just I'm a big fan of Marissa Meyer, and I'm really surprised that this is her order. It's really surprising. I mean, I think that's all there is to say. It's a very, it feels like you can't rebuild Google, right? She's not going to be able to make Yahoo into Google 2.0 because the culture is not there. I mean, I hate to say it, but Google and to some degree Microsoft and Apple, they don't hire experienced engineers when they can avoid it. They hire, honor students out of college, and they keep them as long as possible. And actually, there's a great book called "What Will Google Do" that covers that pretty well. Yahoo, I feel like, has a lot more turnover, and I feel like the median age, not that age is a real factor, other than that older developers are likely to have families and much more likely to resist that kind of culture.
Yes.
It's great. It's great, Marissa, that you're willing to order us all dinner and do our, have someone do our laundry and all that. But I have a kid and wife. I need to go home.
And they matter more to me than
anything you could offer.
Yeah.
It's different. It's, Google, and it's been widely documented, has a very college culture. Very, we're all hanging out, frat house kind of thing. I don't think Yahoo has that. And unless they plan to fire a whole lot of people.
And then all of their core people would be gutted.
Right. I mean, Yahoo, to me, has a big advantage, and they have those people with that experience. They do have more experienced developers. It's not everybody in their 20s.
I guess I don't understand the interest in Yahoo. To me, Yahoo's already kind of eclipsed in their
I
their
have an interest in Yahoo
now.
Because I really thought if anyone could do it, Marissa could do it. I think she would be the only one.
But you got to wonder why she started getting passed up for promotions in Google.
Well, I mean, that's all rumor and theory. There are reasons that are probably
I think
not.
she was passed up on a couple of opportunities, and I think maybe there's reason for that. I don't know. I know you like her, so I don't want to speak ill of her, but this is just a really boneheaded move. This is one of those moves where, like, this is like I don't want to get into politics. I won't say that, but it's
Yeah,
just a bad move.
this certainly doesn't have any real benefit, and it has a very high cost. I mean, I think we could agree on that.
Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
see. Maybe we'll start hearing stories of turnover.
He's a
Oh,
jackass.
I think as soon as these developers, and it's not going to be very hard for them to get jobs in New York and California, by the way. As soon as they, start filling out resumes, I'm pretty sure we'll see some key players take a walk.
And I don't. Okay, I know we need to move on, but I just want to. One last thing is, I just wish, as like this sounds so much like hyperbole, but almost as like a gift to the American people. I wish Yahoo just could have said, we're a company that supports remote working culture because we know that family becomes first. Because if you look at how much Americans work compared to a lot of other countries, we're killing ourselves here. And the general average wages haven't increased since the 70s. And we're just totally killing ourselves for these companies. And I would love for some company to say, hey, you know what? People first. People are important. I mean, you have some, in some cases, like I hear Zappos is great. I hear people love working for Costco. And I know there's examples out there, but in the tech company, we just in the tech industry, we just grind people down. We grind them up and burn them out.
Yep.
And then people get to their 30s and their 40s and they feel like they've been working for 50 years. It's just too bad.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably talk about it again. This is a much bigger issue of why. I really do think in a focused 4-hour day, you can get a lot more done than an 8-hour day.
Nathan PC in the chat room says, here in Brazil, we work 3 months just to pay our extremely high taxes. Jeez, yeah, that's awful. Although isn't it? And then you have what in France? They get mandatory when you new first job, you get 5 weeks vacation.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's one. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
exactly
there's extremes, I'm sure, on both sides. I mean, and you're building it into a much bigger and potentially political issue. To me, the big violation here is, Marissa Mayer didn't make this deal, but Yahoo did, and she's now violating the terms of the deal. Even if it's in the contract that they can change it at will, it's to me, it's bad faith. You made an agreement
it's treating people like numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you made an agreement that you knew you could just get out of at will.
Yeah, and then if Yahoo treats their employees like numbers, their numbers will treat them. Their numbers
will. Yeah, they will walk away, and I can tell you.
Yeah, they'll just milk them. All right, fine. I'll come in. I'll earn my paycheck. I'll do the least I have to do to get that paycheck. You want me sitting here? Fine.
Yeah, there are a lot of hungry VCs in the New York area who, if you're a Yahoo developer and you say, I need a new project, they'll happily hire you up to help their startup.
Absolutely.
I mean, they are not in a geographic area where they can say, well, we're the biggest employer. We can do what we want. They are. I mean. One office in California, one in New York. This is crazy.
Well, and it's just, I know we need to move on, but it's just so ridiculous that in 2013, in no time, it's not going to be, a small competitive hiring market. It's going to be a worldwide market where somebody in London could take a job at a company in California.
I'm a contract consultant. Do you know who I'm worried about competing with?
The world, the entire freaking world, China, India.
I'm worried about China and India. I'm very friendly with my more local competitors because odds are if we're going to lose a project, it's never to each other. It's always someone who decided they only have, $1,000 or something like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so.
And as those other countries' economies continue to grow, they're going to have more and more people in the position who are educated, that are competent developers or technical consultants that can take these jobs and work remotely, and in some cases maybe work for less. And just as we're seeing manufacturing kind of trickle out, there's absolutely no reason we couldn't see those kind of jobs trickle out. And Yahoo's concept of keeping everybody in house is what's going to happen is everybody who's really like of an all-star talent will get sucked up by companies that are willing to have everybody work remotely. Because, if you want to work from London, that's fine. We don't care. So what? Yeah, we'll hire you. And then those people are never going to go to Yahoo.
Yeah, it's a very short-sighted thing. And my suspicion is that this is just a preamble to very big, very disruptive moves to come. And disruptive in the HR sense of take a walk. Your project has been stagnating for 2 years. Get out. Your project is canceled. I mean, to me, that's if I was her, the only reason I demand everybody to be geographically near me is so I can start dismissing people easily. And that would be, and maybe it's because I'm, a bit younger than her and much more aggressive. Maybe that's just my.
Just a warning to you: my lights are flickering here at the JBHQ. So if
that's okay, we have to actually wrap up in 3 minutes anyway. So.
If Skype drops, that's because I lost power.
All right, we should probably wrap up with the tool of the week, and we'll save Zamirian until next week.
Oh, all right, okay, that sounds good.
All right,
what is the tool of the week this week?
It's TM Theme Editor. It is a web-based color scheme editor for TextMate, Sublime Text, and a bunch of other text editors.
Whoa, this looks great.
Yeah.
So, well, boy, that's a really crazy. It's a Heroku app. That's a really crazy URL, though. So you just have to go get the link in the show notes.
Yeah, I just get it out of the note. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make a quick pick this week just to remind everybody that there are only 8 days left to grab a wonderful TechSnap t-shirt, the episode 100 celebration shirt for $13.37 with Alan's mug right on your chest. Only 8 days left, so we'll have a link to that in the show notes too. You can go
That's
grab
right.
one of those.
I already got mine. Go pick yours up while supplies last.
Nice. So very cool. All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, just want to remind everybody that we need to get your feedback so that way we have stuff to chew on. It's sort of an essential ingredient to this show. So email us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or you can hit contact at the top of the site and fill out the form there. And Mr. Dominic, where should people find you throughout the week?
And you can find me on Google Plus or on Twitter @Dumanuko.
Very nice. Links to all those and my profiles in the show notes. And don't forget to join us live Mondays, 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, over at jblive.tv. Thanks to our great chat room. Thanks to you, Mr. Dominic, for a great show. And thanks to you, everyone. No, thank you. And thanks to you, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.